very warm welcome to the Question Hour show from the Parliament House complex, where we bring you important unstarred questions that were asked by the members of the upper house during the previous session of the Rajya Sabha and the response given by the government in written format. I'm Kriti Mishra, and joining me is my colleague Akhilesh Suman. So Akhilesh, let's take our viewers through important questions and answers that we've compiled for them in this edition of Question Hour. And the first question is by member MV Rajiv Gowda, and this one pertains to the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare. And Mr. Gowda has asked the government whether it has taken cognizance of seed bankers in the country who are preserving native crops.
And the answer, Kriti, is yes, sir. PPV and FR authority registers farm varieties. Till date, 1597 farm varieties have been registered with PPV and FRA, and certificates of registration have been issued. Further, the protection of plant varieties and farmers' rights authority under section 39(1)(3) of PPV and FR Act 2001 annually confers 35 awards amounting to rupees 85 lakh to farmers, farming communities engaged in conservation of plant genetic resources and which have used as donor of genes in varieties registrable under Act. So far, 124 farmers and farming communities have received such awards. It's very good to encourage the farmers. ICAR, National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources, New Delhi is conserving seed germplasm for long conservation, and it is done at around minus 20 degrees centigrade in its National Gene Bank, that is called NGB. The NGB has the responsibility of conservation of plant genetic resources for posterity and sustainable use, including land races and traditional varieties which are potential sources of agriculturally important genes. As on 30 June 2019, NGB is holding 4,41,253 accessories belonging to 1948 species, including 83,394 accessions of land races or primitive varieties. So, it is quite interesting data. And the next question, Kriti, is raised by Mr. Rakesh Sinha, the member of Rajya Sabha. He is asking the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare whether it is a fact that the crop residue burning is a great cause of pollution, skin disease, etc. in certain states of the country. Whether it is also a fact that machinery available for management of crop residue is very expensive even after the subsidy given thereon. So, it is very important as far as Delhi and other areas are concerned, and in this season especially.
Well, absolutely, Akhilesh. In fact, this question was asked during the previous session of Parliament, but this is very important even in the present context. And let's see what is the answer given by the government. Well, the government says that among other factors, smoke from the burning of paddy crop residue by the farmers in Indo-Gangetic plains of the states of Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh contributes to environmental pollution during the winter season, which increases the risk of human health hazards, including skin problems. However, as per satellite data, overall about 15 to 41% reduction in number of paddy residue burning events were observed in the year 2018 as compared to that of the year 2017, 2016 respectively in these three states. The government further says that after the applicable subsidy, which is 50% for individuals and 80% for groups, the cost of machinery works out to be very reasonable, and this machinery can also be availed on rent through custom hiring centres. Moving on to the next question, and this one is posed to the Ministry of Animal Husbandry and Fisheries, and this one has been asked by member T. Subirami Reddy. And Mr. Reddy has asked about the schemes for welfare of fishermen in the coastal areas of the country.
The answer says Department of Fisheries, Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying has been implementing a centrally sponsored scheme, that is CSS, on Blue Revolution, integrated development and management of fisheries in all states and union territories, including Andhra Pradesh, with a total central outlay of rupees 3,000 crores. The National Scheme of Welfare of Fishermen is one of the components of CSS. The welfare activities covered under the component of National Scheme of Welfare of Fishermen are development of modern fishermen village and also the group accident insurance for active fishermen, and the third, saving cum relief. Department of Fisheries, Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying under CSS inter alia provides financial assistance also to state governments, union territories for supporting traditional artisanal fishermen for purpose of boats as a replacement for traditional wooden boats including nets, assistance for deep fishing, etc. So, there are two components, one is help, financial help, and the other is the help to the community. Now, let us come to the next question, Kriti. The question is asked by Dr. Amy Yagnik, and she has asked the question to Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizer, and the question is the production capacity of urea under fertilizer in the country, the total number of fertilizer factories which are operational along the number of factories closed, and whether it is proposed to increase a state quota to ensure the availability of fertilizers to farmers.
Well, here's a detailed reply to this question by the government, and the government goes on to say that there are 44 major fertilizer manufacturing factories or units which are operational in the country at this moment. 8 fertilizer factories or units of central public sector enterprises under administrative control of Department of Fertilizers are closed. Before the commencement of each cropping session, Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare, in consultation with all state governments, assesses the requirements of fertilizers. After assessment of requirement, the project month-wise requirement of the fertilizers is also made. On the basis of month-wise and state-wise projection given by the Department of Fertilizers, allocates sufficient or adequate quantities of fertilizers to states by issuing monthly supply plan and continuously monitors the availability through the following system. Now, let's get the details of the system. The movement of all major subsidized fertilizers is being monitored throughout the country by an online web-based monitoring system called Integrated Fertilizer Monitoring System. The state governments are regularly advised to coordinate with manufacturers and importers of fertilizers for streamlining the supplies through timely placement of indents of railway rakes through their state institutional agencies like MarkFed. Regular weekly video conference is being conducted jointly by Department of Agriculture and Cooperation and Farmers Welfare's, Department of Fertilizers and Ministry of Railways with state agriculture officials, and corrective steps are taken to dispatch fertilizer as indicated by the respective state governments. Moving on to the next question, which pertains to the Ministry of Commerce and Industry and has been asked by member Parimal Nathwani. And Mr. Nathwani has asked whether it is a fact that the government has given approval that gives preference to Make in India in government procurement policy under National Procurement Policy.
Yeah, the question is quite interesting, Kriti, given the fact that government is planning Make in India for a long time, and for the success of it, the question is very pertinent. The government says the public procurement, as amended from time to time, is an enabling provision to promote domestic value addition in public procurement. The policy aims at encouraging domestic manufacturers' participation in public procurement over entities merely importing to trade or assemble items. The order is applicable on procurement of goods, services and works, including turnkey works by a central ministry, the attached subordinate offices, autonomous bodies controlled by the Government of India and government companies. As per the order, only local suppliers are eligible to bid for procurement up to Indian rupees 50 lakh, except in certain cases. However, for the items where there is sufficient local capacity and local competition, only local suppliers are eligible to bid irrespective of purchase value. For procurement where lowest bid is not by a local suppliers get purchase preference. An effective grievance redressal mechanism has been implemented to ensure that restrictive and discriminatory clauses against local suppliers are not included in the bid document. So, it is very point to point protection to the local suppliers and purchasers. And third, the order incentivizes participation of local industry in a public procurement and hence gives a boost to domestic manufacturing and services, leading to enhanced income levels and employment generation in the country. So, you can understand that government is trying to create sense of understanding between local producers, local purchasers, and also the national producers and national purchasers. And the next question, Kriti, is by Rathwa Naranbhai Jemla Bhai, and he is asking the question again to Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And the question is whether any assistance and guidance is being provided separately to set up timber industry in the country. Okay, timber industry, what is the answer?
Well, again, this is a very specific reply given by the government, and the government goes on to say that there are no specific schemes under which any assistance or guidance is being provided separately to set up timber industry in the country. However, the Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade under Ministry of Commerce and Industry has notified Northeast Industrial Development Scheme 2017. Now, this scheme is meant for granting incentives to new industrial units established in northeastern states, which also includes the timber industry. Industrial Development Scheme, which is also called the IDS, also exists for Himalayan states, namely Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Under the scheme, incentives are provided to all eligible new and existing units and for their substantial expansion located anywhere in the Himalayan states. Let's move on to the last question of this edition of Question Hour, and this one has been asked by member A.K. Selvraj and pertains to the Ministry of Railways. And Mr. Selvraj has asked whether it is a fact that storage of rails has become bothering for railways for quite some time now. That's an interesting question, and what is the response, Akhilesh?
Right, Kriti, the question is crisp and the answer is also crisp and very pointed. The ministry says that rail infrastructure has been strengthened extensively during the last 5 years. Accordingly, rail supply is also increasing over the years. For renewal of rails in tracks and construction projects, 5.84, 6.46, 6.20, 8.74 and 10.50 lakh ton rail were supplied in 2014-15, 2015-16, 2016-17, 2017-18 and 2018-19 respectively. So, this is a database question and this is also a database answer.
So, Akhilesh, these were the questions and answers in today's edition of Question Hour. But don't go anywhere, because on the other side, we'll have our colleagues Arvind Singh and Kriti Singh with Prashn Kal in Hindi. Stay tuned to Rajya Sabha Television.